Kia ora, it's Mike Atkinson. This presentation is going to look at some map features. These are key geographical features that you'll find out in the field. And 6 features that we're looking at today are peaks, ridges, spurs, saddles, valleys, and gullies. Now, these geographical features are really important to know so you can identify them in the field and when you're talking a common language with other people when you're trying to identify features in the field, and especially when you're going off track, it's much easier to be able to define and identify these features if you understand terminology. Mountain tops or maunga or hilltops, taumata, are key features that you'll find along the tops of ridgelines. They'll be either marked with a name or a high point, or a spot height, or not named at all. So you'll see on this one here, Mount Winterslow has got a name and height of 700 there. Then you have an unnamed peak further on the ridge. It's just marked with a contour line, and then a spot height. All right, so this is just fairly random by the cartographer or the person who developed the map where they decide to put these. And this one here is 1625. So mountain peaks, you'll see a few identified here. We're on the in the yellow highlight. They're just the high points along the top ridge line, marked in yellow, and then some hilltops marked in purple highlight here. So generally smaller, more rounded, whereas the mountain peaks are much higher, much more above the bush line. A ridge is a continuous chain of elevated high points that slope off from one side to the other. So you're on the crest of the peak, and if you look at this yellow line here, this is following a ridge all the way along from Mount Winterslow all the way along down to here. So this represents the high point along the ridge line, and it falls off either side. And you can see the high points, two different high points marked there, 1625 and 1440, plus other high points aren't marked as well. So the main ridge line in this image here is along the top here on the skyline. All right, this goes along, up and down over peaks, all the way along, and there's another ridge line along here as well. So spurs are similar to ridges, except that they run off the ridges, and they are generally steeper and narrower than ridges. So if you look here, this is the ridge line. It goes along these high points here, all the way through to there, and then running off those are spurs. All right, so you have down here well-defined spur. There's another quite steep, narrow spur through there, and then another spur running off down here and all the way along. So looking at our picture in the field, the spurs here run down there, down here, but more broad spur, another spur down here, and then a reasonably narrow, steep one through here, again through here, and then sort of a flat, broad one along here. The 3 different terms, saddle, col, and pass, are all mean the same thing. They all identify the same feature on a map, which is a low point between some high points. So it's always found on a ridge line, and sometimes on the map they will be marked with 2 curved black lines like they are here. But they're not always marked like that. So you can see here, there's a high point here and a high point here, and then there's a saddle through here. So it's just the low point between two high points on a ridge line. Just like a saddle on a horse is a low point in the horse's back where you put the saddle. In this image here, there aren't very many identifiable saddles. The main one on the main ridge line is up here, in this little U-shaped low point between two high points. There is a very small saddle here between this hilltop and this spur up to another high point up here, so a very small saddle there. Valleys are a long area that lies at the bottom between two ridge lines, either of hills or mountains, and generally quite long and generally flat in the middle, quite often U-shaped. So if you looked at the side on, it would look like the U shape, the shape of a U, and formed through erosion, and most often have a river or a stream running through them. So this is the valley down here. So the main valley in this image here runs down through here. You can actually see Walshy Creek up there, and this is the Walshy Creek itself that runs through here. So that's the main valley system through this feature here. There'll be another valley system down that runs down through here, and then runs and meets into Walshy Creek down here. So the valley is the main where everything drains into. Gullies are similar features to valleys, except they are steeper and narrower, generally shorter than valleys. So gullies running down here run into valleys and quite often have water or streams running down them as well. So here's another gully, right, all flowing into the valley system. And they can be narrow or broad, so you can see this one here starts off quite broad and then steepens up as the contours get tighter together through there. Now you notice that along the ridge line here, right, running off the ridges, you have spurs running down here. So it goes spur, gully, spur, gully, spur, gully, and so on. And then ridge lines run parallel to the valley system. One easy way of trying to remember some of these terms, the features, is just with a clenched fist. And you can see here on this image here that the knuckles here represent the high points or peaks, mountaintops, hilltops. Then the fingers here represent the spurs. And then in between the fingers, so this gap in here, between your fingers are the gullies. Then the ridge line along the top of the knuckles, and then the valley between the two fists. And then the saddle is the low point between the knuckles. So just a simple way of trying to show someone else the features without trying to explain it, giving you a visual or just trying to remember yourself. Very handy way. Just like learning anything new, the new terminology sometimes takes a little bit of getting used to, but all it is practice. So make sure once you've learnt some of these terms is to look around some of the land that you're in and about, even just looking out your window. Sometimes if you're looking at the Port Hills, for example, you should be able to identify different features of ridges, gullies, valleys, spurs. So keep practicing and these words will become second nature to you soon enough.